Okay, so thank you, everybody, or if you're joining us tonight for Heal with the Real. I've got an amazing guest tonight. I do Heal with the Real podcast because I just want to highlight people's survival journey and how they've gone from trauma to triumph, and how people can become so resilient and share their stories so that we can help others become resilient in their, if they're going through any trauma and anything resonates, that we can support people, even like as Janice just said, if we can support just one person to heal through their trauma or support them with some tools. So I wanted to do Heal with the Real is really around my book, Fix Your Future. So I wrote Fix Your Future back in July 2021 due to a domestic abuse that I'd gone through and narcissistic abuse, and how I'd all the tools basically that I'd used through that. So yes, they're all in my books. If anybody is on Amazon, if anybody wants to get that, but the tools in the back are in there that I use to heal or use if anything comes up that triggers me. So tonight's guest, I'm really pleased to have, is Janice Richardson. And do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, Janice?
No, you do
it. Well, we met through the Women's Working Network, didn't we? I can't remember what it's pronounced, but we met through WYSE, okay, WYSE, isn't it? And we instantly connected because we've had not the same journeys, but similar traumatic journeys. Sorry about that, my son. These things happen. So yeah, we've gone through similar journeys, and I really made a connection with Janice, and she said she would like to come on the podcast and start to tell her story. So I'd like you just to say a little bit about your background.
Okay.
And where you're from, what you do now, and then we'll go into a little bit about your story, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, from the age of 9 until 23, I was physically, mentally, and sexually abused by my father. Kept a little bit of a prisoner in the house. I had to be, where he could check on me. Yeah. Bear in mind, this is when we had landlines only, no mobiles, no tech at all. Yeah. So that was Hetman Dwight in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, you're frozen. I don't know if that's me or you.
I'm moving.
Yeah, you're all right. Yeah, it must have been. Apologies for that.
No worries. So 23 is when I started living, basically. That's how I look at it, my new life. I started off working for a company that sold carpets. It was a national company. Ended up very quickly managing three shops in the region: Huddersfield, Dewsbury and Bradford. From then on, I've done nothing but work for myself, apart from a stint when I moved to Northern Ireland 20 years ago. And that was an under manager in a department store. Wasn't my choice, but it was my choice to work for someone. Didn't work out and didn't like it, so I went back to working for myself. At the moment, I'm living between Northern Ireland and Hetman Dwight, hence the West Yorkshire connection. And I'm sort of juggling 3 balls at the minute because I've always got a project on the go. I've always got something on the go, something on the start, because I enjoy building businesses. When I've built it, I don't really want it, so I sell it on. So at the moment, I'm working on 3 projects. I have an online bookshop that I've had for probably 25 years now. That I was an inaugural bookseller on Amazon, which we can talk about later. I also used to design for 2 fashion houses. I can't say the names because I'm on an NDR. But I decided I'm coming up to nearly 60.
Wow.
So it's time to do my own designs with the recognition, because you don't get recognition when you design for these fashion houses. They take all the glory. So the third project, Amanda, I have decided I mothballed when the crash came in 2008. I was about to launch, and I'd done a pilot for this particular business. At that time, I had an art gallery, and I was going to put art into airports, and I had it all ready, and I trialed it at Derry City Airport in Northern Ireland, and it went really well. So now, because I'm a bit bored just designing and crocheting at the moment, I've decided it's ready to go. It's time to take it out of the mothballs. And Leeds Bradford Airport is my first airport that I'm going to go and get.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, we'll go a bit deeper into all those things, but let's start from when you were a young girl. You know, how was that, being locked up by your father?
Well, you have 2 choices. You either become a victim or you survive it. At the age of 12, I knew exactly what was going on, and I knew it wasn't my fault. And I think that when you realize that, that's the turning point.
Yeah.
At 12-year-old, I was aware, and bear in mind, in those days, we were a lot more innocent. You know, we were kids then. We weren't grown up at 8. At 12, I was naive, innocent, no idea what sex or anything was. So it was a shock, and it was horrible. Yeah. But you have to sort of do the best you can. So everybody knew my dad was a bit on the violent side with the family, because everybody got hit, you know, and back then it was a case of you made your bed, you lie in it. My little mother was 4'11". Well, she was 4'11", as thin as a little lat, 6.5 stone wet if she was lucky. She did take some beatings, I'll be honest. She took some really heavy beatings so that me and my brother didn't, but we still got them. So violence and mind games, etc., was the norm, you know, and you tend to put up with it. Fear is a great leveler. Fear is a tool in horrible hands, you know. They know what to do with it. The fear that I had and the threats that I had, if ever I told anybody, and it's so easy for people that haven't gone through any trauma to come and tell you, oh, you should have come to us, you could have told us, why didn't you say oh? Yeah. Hindsight's fantastic, yeah, of course. But when you live in it and you have the threat that if you tell anyone, your mother, your brother, and yourself will be dead. Yeah. Quiet. So it's a great, you know, it's a great tool in the wrong hands, is fear. Yeah, absolutely. And so as a 12-year-old, when you had that realization that this wasn't right, what happened next? Where were you? You know, because I know that you said you had a job, you ended up getting a part-time job. Was that the same time or? No, that was, I was 18 when I was allowed, and I say allowed because that was his control. I was 18 when he allowed me to go to work. And it was only because my mum worked at Fox's Biscuits on the evening shift that he allowed me to go there and back with her. So those 5 hours at Fox's Biscuits, I could feel normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But before that, I mean, I went to Hetman Dwight Grammar, did all the academic stuff, but we weren't allowed to do homework. This is his weird, warped mind. We weren't allowed to do, my brother went there as well, we weren't allowed to do homework and things. So it was a quick 5 minutes in the morning to do, or, you know, and we were sort of classed really as dunces, but we weren't.
Yeah.
The only, as my brother got older and kind of stood up to my father a little bit, he got more freedom, because we were allowed to play out of the garden even before all this happened, you know, before this all started. He was a very Victorian man.
Yeah.
Children were seen and not heard, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, up to 18, my life was in the house. I was allowed out, and it sounds silly saying this, but I was allowed out during the day for X amount of time to go down shopping with my mum. I mean, it was a prisoner. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't locked up and chained or anything like that. But we lived for years and years and years, and I think it affected my mother in her later life. We lived for years and years without new furniture, any furniture. The carpets were taken up. This was when I was getting older. Carpets were taken up, vinyl was taken up, and we lived on floorboards. He made it as horrible as he could. He took all the wallpaper off all the house. So that we wouldn't have people coming. If I was in the house and he was at work, I wouldn't have anybody sneaking in. That was his mentality. Wow. So we lived in a dump, basically. And I'll say that, you know, because that's what he made it. Yeah. So, you know, I actually at sort of 18, 19 thought that that was my lot. And until I die, this is where it's going to be like.
Wow. So talk me through, oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Amanda. And then just before my 23rd birthday, we had an argument. I actually talked back to him because I think I was just that fed up of it. But again, by that time, my brother had unfortunately died a couple of years before that on a motorbike accident. So my mother was kind of lost to me because she was lost to herself at the time.
Was there just the two of you as siblings?
Yes, yes. So one night I answered him back and he got me on the floor and tried strangling me. And he nearly succeeded. If it hadn't have been for my mother coming down and distracting him, I think she hit him over the head with a vodka bottle or something. I think I would have been dead.
Wow.
So the next morning, he'd gone to work and my mum was an old folks warden around where we lived. And she was out on her round, and at 10 o'clock, I can remember it as if it was yesterday. At 10 o'clock, I went to find her and said, look, Mum, my brother had bought her this particular ornament. I said, Mum, go and get your ornament and meet me down at the police station. Now, my mother panicked because she knew what he was like and he'd come out of work if I wasn't where I should be and what have you. She didn't know, I don't think, about the sexual abuse, but she obviously knew about the physical. But she was scared, bless her.
Yeah.
She was scared. So, but she let me go. I went down to the police station and I took a little bag with me. And obviously then it was desk sergeants. It was nothing like police today. It was, you know, Bobby on the beat, blah, blah, blah. And I went and stood at the desk sergeant's little opening thing. He says, right, love, what can I, obviously Yorkshire. Right, love, what can I do for you? I says, well, I want to report incest. And that's all I could think of. I couldn't think of another word. And he says, oh, he says, and at 23, I looked about 10. You know, our a young, because of my clothing and everything, because he put me in, you know, he wouldn't let me wear modern clothing or anything. And the desk sergeant kind of must have thought I was a lot younger than I was. And he says, he says, that's serious, you know. I says, yeah. And I was fuming with him at that time, because it was peril. It was the fear of my dad coming into the police station and taking me out, sort of thing. You know, it was really literally, you know, all these television programs, dramas and what have you. It was literally life or death. Anyway, I plonked this thing on this bag on the counter. I says, have a look in there and tell me I'm not, you know, I'm not serious. And he opened the bag, and my dad had made me he'd brought a post office sack home, really thick Hessian. And he'd made me make a pair of like chastity pants that I could wear when he wasn't there. Well, the sergeant's face dropped. He just didn't know what to do. Right, love, you go and sit down. I'll get to you in a minute. Wow. From there on, my mum joined me after she'd done a round, and we were actually, it was probably the first year the Bradford Rape Centre was open. So it was brand new. It was all high tech from, you know, from there. Went in, we were whisked across to Bradford. Everything was done. A swab was taken because there'd been problems the night before. And that, you know, I went to Edmund White Police Station at like 10:15, and it was 7:30 at night before they actually found him and arrested him, because he'd left work and come out looking for me, and because I wasn't at home, he was looking all over, and he couldn't find my mother as well. So I think he knew there was something up. But they arrested him outside the house, and on the front seat there was a hammer, a carving knife, and the butt end of a snooker cue. And the first thing he said to the police, I'm going to kill her. And he would have done. If he'd have got hold of me, he would have done. But that, you know, if I'd have known, and it's all fantastic with hindsight, but I do say to anybody that is suffering, do not fear letting it out. Yeah. I truly wish I'd have done it years ago. Yeah. At that time. But as silly as it sounds, those years, I would change them. I won't lie, I would change them, but I can't. But they have made me the person I am. Yeah. I'm proud of me. Yeah. And that's the important thing, isn't it? Absolutely. That we learn from them lessons, and we just become these strong, resilient people. And that's the important part. So what was next after that? Where did you go after that? Well, and what happened to your dad? Yeah, well, he was arrested, and he didn't see light of day until court. It went to court. I lost my family, his side of the family. This is one of the tragic things. I lost my favourite aunties and uncles and cousins because they felt that they had to look after him. Blood's thicker than water. That's what I got told. And I'm scratching my head with them in the courtroom after it had all been done. And I'm saying, but I'm blood. And but anyway, 30 years on, I met them all before my auntie and uncle died. So, you know, I don't have contact with them. as much as I would like. Obviously, I've missed them more than they've missed me. So that's a sad reflection, but it's, you know, it's the way it goes. If you don't see somebody for 30 years, it's hard to pick up, you know.
Yeah.
So he got, the court was ridiculous and the sentencing was appalling. He got 4 years and 4 years for 2 different things to run concurrent, which means he only does 4 years. He'd done 18 months in prison to start with on remand, and the police were supposed to let us know when he was getting out. Well, here's a little tale. I was walking with my mum, Leeds, just opposite the market on the other side of the road, and who came up and walked in front of us?
Wow.
He did. We kind of crapped ourselves. I hope you don't mind that word.
No.
As clean as I could.
I'd have said a stronger word than that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it, but got the other one out. Anyway, my mother, poor little love, you know, and she's a very strong woman, was my mum. But that day, I think both Annie's, you know, our legs buckled.
Yeah.
I went straight to the nearest policeman I could find and explained what had happened. And as I say, the prison was supposed to let because he'd no remorse or anything. Yeah. How he got out so quickly is beyond me. But anyway, it wasn't, his prison wasn't great. He kept his mouth shut of obviously why he was in. He was a wife batterer as far as everybody were concerned, until we found somebody that, and this is Janice, this is where she starts her little, you know, finding people for the right things. I was very lucky to find someone that put someone into prison. They're dodgy people, but I didn't mind. They put someone into prison to go and give him a good kicking. And it worked because he lost his foot through being, you know, badly beaten. Sad, isn't it? You know, karma and all that. Yeah. But when the police, they put panic buttons in for us, and there were a couple of times I had to use them, and I cannot fault the police at all, because within 3 minutes they were up at my house when I needed them. Amazing. But he just stalked me for a long time until I stood up to him. Yeah. Until I stood up to him, you know, that were it. And then he was just a pathetic little old man. Yeah, it took a lot of guts, you know. Well done. I mean, it's that being able to then say no more. I'm not frightened. I'm not this frightened girl anymore. This little girl inside of me. I'm not going to be that frightened person, and I'm going to tackle it myself and be brave and not have that fear, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes though, Amanda, it's not that you're not brave and you've got, you know, you're that frightened person. Sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture and put your stall out, because I had my mother's, and when he was alive, my brother's welfare to think of. So I couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. That was my fear. I wasn't frightened of him. I was fed up with the beatings and everything. And I suppose over time you become a little bit more blasé as well, you know. But it was more looking after other people than what had happened to me, because I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't going to sort of lose anything, was I? Yeah. So I had to keep other people safe. Otherwise, I think I possibly would have gone and told somebody sooner. But with him being so violent, and unpredictable, you couldn't do anything. So as I say, I thought it was my lot. But onwards and upwards. Yeah. So where did you go from there? So you said when you sent me the little bit of your bio that you met somebody that was kind of your
Was it, did you say surrogate dad or family?
But
Was
that
the
was
next part?
kind of, yeah. There's a lot that sort of blends in, you know, across the way there. The people that my dad was working for at the time, he was a maintenance guy for this company, and he used to do all the houses as well as the offices and what have you. You know, the owners' houses and what have you. So he used to take me to the houses with him, so that he knew where I was.
Okay.
But I became friends with both business partners, them and their families. So it was nice in that respect. You know, it gave me a little bit of freedom that way, because it meant that I had a little bit of normality.
Yeah.
The guy that became my surrogate father, or, you know, my adopted dad, he could not speak to me for a year after it all came out, because he felt he'd let me down. Yeah, the effect. Plus, he also had a 4-year-old daughter at the time, so his thoughts were obviously, has he done anything to my daughter? So it was quite funny. I'd met somebody. This is why I'd been strangled, or almost strangled. I'd met somebody that I used to go to school with, and I was sneaking off work, and my mum was letting me. How silly does this sound at 23? But it was like being a child, you know, a school kid.
Yeah.
I was sneaking off work, not going to work, and meeting this guy. Anyway, one night my dad walked into the pub. He'd found out, and it was a bit awkward and what have you, but he'd, in his warped mind, he'd decided, I'm going to let her get married, because that was where we were at the time, and I think it was just to get out of home, you know, but it was a bit of a pipe dream. But he let me get engaged, and the thought behind that was that he was going to take us to his honeymoon and go off a cliff. That was his words, not mine. You know, it's what he told me. So after going to the police and what have you, the reason I argued back with my dad was because this guy had finished with me. He knew, because I'd confided in him that week as to what was going on, because he thought it were all strange, you know, that I couldn't go out and what have you a lot. And he wanted to beat the living daylights out of him, but I begged him, no, I can't, you know, there's too much, he'll kill us, So we broke up, and my dad always said, if you break up with this guy, you'll never have another boyfriend. So I was so down on 2 points, you know, it was double whammy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, once it had gone to the police, he found out, and we got back together, and sillily I went ahead with the wedding that we'd been planning while he was there, while my dad was there. So that was the next step, but I went from one abuser to another. The guy was a drunk. I didn't know until I'd married him, but bear in mind, I didn't see him that often. And of course I was naive. So he was the, you know, you normally go for like, you go from one bad relationship to another until you recognize the signs and you're strong enough to say, no more.
Yeah.
I've done this, I'm not doing it again.
And you're right, there's a cycle that you'll keep doing over and over again till you learn that lesson. And that lesson is, you've got to work on yourself and your healing and understand why you keep going for the wrong people.
Absolutely. I did that twice and no more. Did it after one guy after I left my husband, and no more. No more. that's when I took control of that side of my life, and now nobody tells me what to do. I've always said there's two things: I will not be controlled, and I won't lie.
Yeah.
Because I lived a web of lies and deceit for so long, I will.
I'm not sure if we've lost her.
Sorry, I didn't know whether you were still there. So I don't accept lies from anybody, and I don't give them. If they don't like it, it's tough, but that's just a little trait.
So how did you get out of this marriage then? What happened there? How did you break?
I walked away from it.
Okay.
And this is where the stepdad part comes in.
Right.
For the first year of my marriage, he wasn't around, simply because he couldn't face me. And then all of a sudden we were at a do, and he was there, and we chatted, and then he said, come and work for us. You know the business inside out, because from 14 I'd been there when they started building the company. So
what was the company?
I can't, well, I don't know whether I should tell you, because I don't want to give his, you know, I haven't asked his permission to speak.
What does it do essentially?
It's a unique company. It's a unique.
Okay.
It's in the textile.
Okay.
It's in the textile world. The company has a lot of divisions now, and a lot is to do with steam cleaning of hospitals and what have you. So, okay. But it started off as a particular, and it's a unique product that nobody, you know, as so you would kind of know the company.
Okay.
And I never thought to ask permission if it was all right to chat about it.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I will tell you later, but obviously this is going out.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting out of the marriage, oh gosh, it comes back to violence again. He came home one night, it was my birthday the next day, and he literally, we had pine, you know, when pine was all the rage, we had a pine bed, and he was a strong guy. He was a very fit sort of bodybuilder, and he lifted the bed up and pushed me over to the wall in it. And I thought, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And he'd gone off with somebody else anyway. So, but he thought that was all right, you know, in his drunkard state. He'd been driving without a license, got caught, and he went to prison. I'd done him once for battery, but like, until you sort of fall out of love with them and realize what's going on, you forgive them. So I went to the court and said, oh, please don't be very hard on him. But he went to prison anyway for a short while. But of course, by then you take them back. You know, it's a cycle. You take them back until you realize, until you sort of sort yourself out and say you're better than this. But it takes a lot of time, you know, and the amount of people that tell you, oh, leave him. You don't.
That you've hit a really important point, because loads of people go, well, why didn't you just leave? But you know, there's so many things why people don't leave. It could be financial abuse. You know, you might not have the money to leave. You might not have anywhere to go. Like you might be fearful of what will happen to your family. You know, you've got that person going, oh, well, you know, this will happen if you leave. So there's all these things, isn't there?
It's emotional as well. You're still in love with the person. You always think you can change them.
Yeah.
But you can't. And the sooner people realize that, the better. But you cannot tell someone and expect them just to leave them like that, because emotions play a part, and you'll dig your heels in, and
it's the worst thing you can say to somebody that's going through trauma.
Yeah, but people that don't go through it, that go through life with, you know, lovely rosy coloured tinted glasses, I'm not jealous of them, because it makes them a little bit of a small person. I don't think if you haven't had trauma in your life and all you've had is roses and, you know, and honey sort of thing, you're missing something. And I mean that in a nice way. I mean that in life experiences. I think that if you suffer traumas, not always as bad as mine or yourself, I think a little bit of trauma gives you more idea of reality and life.
The most beautiful people come from traumatic backgrounds. I really do believe that, because you go through so much and then you just become this sort of resilient, you know, you've had, like you say, those lived experiences where it just makes you a stronger, understanding person.
Yeah, well, I'm a Libra, and I balance everything. You know, I see the good and bad in everybody.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, excuse me, don't get me wrong, not everybody that goes through trauma comes out nice.
Yeah.
So, you know, sadly, some people are marked by it, and, you know, they choose to be a victim to it, if you like.
Yeah, some people never heal, never understand. They're always, you know, when you can become conscious, that's when you begin your your healing journey. So you met this man from the company that we can't talk about, but
Sorry.
no, don't apologize. Don't ever apologize. So where did you go then?
Right. Okay. So when I decided life was up with my husband, I told this person, and he went and bought me a flat down in Heavenswijk and moved me straight out. So he was, from that day on, he was very protective, but he also became my mentor for business. Now there was two, but they've one sold out to Pops. Pops is what I call him. So if you're listening, you'll know.
Does he know that you're on a podcast?
No, I should be telling him tomorrow.
Well, I'll send you the link, and you can you can send him.
Super job.
What an experience to have a mentor at that age, like, who can talk you through business and show you the ropes.
Well, as I say, I learned
meant to be, wasn't it? It was
absolutely.
I do believe in things like this.
I'm a great believer in fate. I think your life is mapped out before you're born.
Yeah.
I am. This might not go down well with your listeners, but my mother has always been a spiritualist, and it's a way of life rather than a religion. And we were brought up in what they call the spiritualist church. So, you know, we're great believers in fate. It's not, like I say, church is a term to try and put it into a cubbyhole, but it's not. But we're great believers in fate. So what happened was, these two guys set this company up. One was the boffin that invented the process that they sell, and Pops was brought in because he was the mouthpiece. He was the seller. He was the suave, sophisticated guy back in the 80s that could sell coal to Newcastle. Okay. You know, ice to Eskimos, that sort of thing. And he was like nothing I'd ever, you know, he was my idol and still is. But he taught me everything. He taught me the gift of the gab, let's say, and everything else. But he taught me to sell. and I can't fault him for it. But he also taught me to have a social conscience.
Yeah.
You know, the company has a social conscience, and, you know, 40 years on, 40, oh, crikey, yeah, 40 years on now. Goodness me. And it's still Leeds based. So it's still a local company, but it has offices across the world. You know, it is an international company. When I was 23 and I left my husband and went to work for this company, I left my husband within 6 months of getting married. It was, I went back like an idiot a couple of times, but it just wasn't the same. So that was it, ta-ta. There is one thing I think after trauma that you tend to have, and that is a cold side. Once you've realised that people aren't all that they think they are and that you think they are, I think you have a very quick turn and you can say, that's it, ta-ra.
I think you're more intuitive.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you can recognize somebody that is fake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you will only put up with so much rubbish.
Yeah.
But that's, maybe it's personal to me, I don't know, but I don't suffer fools anymore. I suffered one.
Can I ask you, Janice, is there any tools that you particularly use in any way from after all this trauma? Wow.
I have to say no. At 12, oh crikey, you have to remember that we only had 3 television stations. We only had 3 channels back then.
I remember it well.
Like, it's awful when you think about it. I remember watching something and my dad was sat in the chair, and the settee was sat back from him and he couldn't see me. But I picked up on one small thing, I can't even remember what it was, but it was to do with being abused and it not being your fault. And that, from that point on, I actually started counselling myself.
Yeah.
One other, I suppose, oh crikey, one tool, if you can call it a tool, I don't know. It's not a, it was my tool, if you like. I used to live 2 lives. I had parallel lives, if you can, you know, it's not schizophrenia or anything like that. It was just a coping mechanism and it worked for me. When my dad was there, I was this person. When he wasn't, even though I wasn't allowed out, I lived a life. I had a disco in the kitchen. You know, there was a bit of normality. Yeah. So that, you know, it's been self-counselling all the way through.
And I think that's quite normal, isn't it? Wearing a mask for different situations that you find yourself in. And it's about taking that mask off and saying, yeah, right, I'm not wearing this mask anymore and being this person that I'm really not. I'm just going to show my true self. Absolutely. So amazing. Where are you going? So you've got your flat and you're working alongside your mentor, your surrogate dad. And where are you going now with your life?
Okay, I spent 18 months in Chesapeake Bay on the Marine.
Wow.
Camp. Okay. Fantastic. And this is through the company.
Yeah.
We had something that they wanted for the uniforms. Again, it was textile. I spent a fabulous 18 months in Chesapeake Bay, going to Virginia Beach every other weekend. One of the small stories that I have from that time was that I used to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning with the Marines, and I would go for a jog with them.
Amazing.
They would have full kit on and what have you, and their backpacks and what have you, because they were training. And after half an hour, I couldn't keep up. So they used to pick me up and throw me over the shoulder and they weren't allowed to stop, you know, on their run, and they used to throw me across when the guy that was carrying me got heavy, that I got heavy on. They used to throw me to the next guy. So I ended up being the little mascot, you know, but it was good fun. I had life. I certainly made up a lot. In fact, through all my life, you know, from 23 onwards, I've made up for what I missed out on. So can't grumble. And that's so that was the next 18 months after leaving the husband and what have you. From that point onwards, I've always worked in the background, no matter what else I've been doing. And I now am chair of the company. Wow. But you know, I do my own thing as well. I only go to meetings and stuff, and I run. There's only me and the secretary left from the original group.
Okay.
Yeah. In the first year of trading, the guys made so much money that there were 3 women that helped them set up the company and worked for 6 months without wages. In the first Christmas party we had, they paid off these 3 ladies' mortgages.
Wow.
And they were all in their 20s, so they had the houses in the 20s.
Wow.
And again, going back to the time, that was unheard of, but that was, you know, that was dead on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time.
I know, we should do another.
we could do another with all your stories, absolutely.
If you would like, I don't mind.
So where are you? Let's talk about where you are now. And
okay.
Yeah, let's just finish on where you are now. We've got a few more minutes just to kind of say where you're now, where are you now and what you're doing.
Well, as I say, I have the online bookshop. Again, lots of funny stories with that, especially how we set it up, and how I got to know Jeff Bezos. Okay. But that was when he was young and not as famous as he, and not a billionaire as he is now.
Okay, wow.
I still have the link there. But at the moment, I am designing a new collection of crochet and knitwear. I have my website nearly live, but it isn't quite.
Who does the crocheting? You?
Yeah, I used to design for 2 fashion houses, not at the same time, obviously, but if you go to D&G, Dior, I haven't said them, anything that is crocheted, shoes, handbags, dresses, coats, blah, 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 is my design.
Wow.
I've just broken my NDR, so, you know, let's hope they don't hear about it. But
wow, no, listen, oh gosh, I've gone to work today, and one of my directors, she's a lady with Down syndrome. She's an incredible lady.
Yes, I love the company. Yeah,
she is an amazing crocheter, and I got there today. It's just funny that you should talk about this, because I got there today and I've just become a grandma.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
So I know, it's amazing. So a week ago, she was a week on Monday, 1 week on Monday. So what are we now? Nearly
2 weeks, with Thursday.
Yeah, something like that. And I turned up to work today where she was, and she said, oh, I've made you a present for the baby. And I opened it up, and it's a crocheted blanket.
Oh, fantastic.
Beautiful. She's such a clever lady. I'd love to introduce you to her.
Yeah, well, I'd be quite happy to do that. Yeah. So the website is going live. And I'm just about to go looking at funding for the airports.
Okay. Where do you normally look for funding? Because I know you're really clever, like you told me.
Well, for this particular one, I'm going after leveling up money.
Yeah.
So I might as well, you know. Everything is ready to go. I have what it is basically is I want a wall in the airport, airside, to put an art gallery.
Amazing.
So it helps local artists. They get to put their work up for nothing. I don't take a commission when I sell. My money comes out of the magazine that goes with it. Wow. And it's a good magazine. So, but yes, at the moment for that, I'm going for levelling up money. It's Leeds based, and if I don't have it, somebody else will.
Exactly.
So
I kind of call it free money. It's free money. Which, you know, you've got to put the work in, obviously, but essentially it's free money, isn't it?
Yeah. The one thing that I will say, the one thing that Pops has always told me, try never to use your own money to start a business. Yeah. Always go and find some. I have a habit of starting businesses with like 300 quid. And I know it sounds terrible, but I'm a Yorkshire girl. I'm as tight as they come. Right? So I have a funny way of working out whether a business is viable or not. I start with how much profit I want to make and work it backwards. And I once had a business partner that couldn't get his head around that and said, Janice, you're a bit pie in the sky here. He says, I'd have to do a flow chart sort of sheet, you know, I forget what they call them. And he's a spreadsheet, that were it. And he came back to me like 2 weeks after, when he'd finished working it out, 2 weeks after, and said, Janice, how did you get that figure? Because you're dead on, down to the last penny. I says, because I have a head that just knows what she wants and knows how to get it, sort of thing.
Wow.
So, but I honestly, I know I'm aware of your time, but I would love to come back and chat some more.
I would love you to come back, because even on a separate issue, you know, there's so many things that I'd like to speak to you about that we just haven't had time to cover.
Absolutely. I think we've covered the past, and moving forward, perhaps maybe we could talk about business and how my weird approach works.
No, and I don't think that's a weird approach, looking at it as how much you want to make. I'm rubbish at figures. I could maybe do with a bit of advice from you, because figures is not my thing.
I have no formal training on anything, and I do it that way because it saves you a lot of messing about. It saved me 2 weeks opposed to him, you know, doing his spreadsheets. I can look in 5 minutes and tell you whether your business is going to be viable or not. And I know sometimes I feel awful because I think that's not going to make out. But it depends. It depends. I work in millions as well because of what I've done. There's a few things, but I always work in millions, and working in that and then looking at someone else's business on a small scale, sometimes I'm probably a bit awful and say, I won't get out of bed for that. Yeah. I have made...
You'd probably say that to me.
No, because I've got older now. That was when I was younger. This is the downside of what happened to me. I made £2 million and spent it in a year.
Wow.
I'm not proud of that, and I regret everything because I'd got nothing to show for it. I spent it on living. So in one respect, I don't care because I had life. But the one thing that I haven't got from anybody really, and I think I got too old, is money. No worth of money, if you get me, because we never had any, and because I didn't have someone growing up to show me how to manage money and things. I think that is probably the biggest regret I have of the way that I was brought up and everything, you know, and everything that happened to me. But I'm making it again. And this time I've got nobody to leave it to because I have no children. I'm just going to live life large.
And in no regrets. I mean, we shouldn't have regrets. We just learn from the lesson. And why bloody not? You've worked for it. You know,
I have
worked for that money.
Sadly, I have no one to leave it to. So I do have money for a project sitting in the bank. And then I need to add to it as well, which I have that funding, which I spoke to you about earlier.
Yeah.
If I set myself I've set myself a time scale to do this last project, this last big project that I want to do. And if I don't do it, I'm going on a world cruise all the way around.
Right, I'm coming with you.
Very welcome. till the money runs out.
Oh, Janice, do you know what? You've been an absolute pleasure to have on.
Thank you
so much. What I've just had a blast having you on. It's just been so lovely. So
I've enjoyed it, but maybe we should do another one.
Let's have a part
joy
2
out of it, you know, get the joy out of it. We've had all the crap this time.
yeah, let's have the part 2. You know, that was lovely, and thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to find out about you and what you're doing and just everything about your life. It's just been incredible. So thank you for sharing that and being so vulnerable.
Do you know what? I don't really know what vulnerability is, but you have to teach yourself that.
Yeah.
You know, and if there's anybody that needs any talking to or any chats and they want to come and have a chat, if anybody gets in touch with you, pass my email on, because I'm, you know, they're very welcome if I can help them.
Oh, Janice, thank
you. I've enjoyed it. It's been a bit strange talking about me.
It's been lovely. I've loved it. I've loved talking about you and finding out about you. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Where can anybody find you if they want to find you before we go?
What do you mean?
Well, your email is that, or should we leave it?
Yeah, email's grand. You can get me at, I'll give you this one, Janice 32123 at Gmail.
Okay. Gmail.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right, we're going to end the recording. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.